All right. It is good afternoon to you. It is good morning to me. It's a rather an emotional homecoming event. Thank you very much for including me in this series, Paul and Tom and many others. I remember Brian Ulno. We witnessed the resurrection of Brian right in the building. He just fell and his heart stopped, but the Lord raised miraculously back to his life. There are so many things in that small historic building, so it is, if I become emotional, please understand. But it is so good to see you old friends, including Michael Bill there, as well as newer friends. Even the newer ones, I recognize some of you. It testifies to the history of OCMS. I think I saw Karuna somewhere. Her father was our graduate from Nepal. Now she is doing her study. I think it is just wonderful. All right. My reflection this morning is titled, I don't know whether you have the text or not, The Growing Vision of Holistic Mission. It is an audacious title, of course. Now, subtitle is a reflective memoir. Remember, this is a memoir on OCMS in the changing global context. It is 2006 through 2016. So I served 10 years. And by looking back, I realized that I was, in a way, a transitional figure and period. It's critical. It's not long. In fact, when I started this reflective memoir, I started more personally. How I became part of OCMS, Julia and I became part of OCMS, and I suddenly realized that there is a daunting task as a community and institution toward this continuity. So that part, again, God's intervention, gracious hands. So at the end, I concluded, okay, I will divide this. Today's reflection will be more in the global context, and it is really for the broader audience. But at some point, I will write an in-house reflection, which may serve as a useful piece towards the construction of OCMS history. So it will be memoir. I'm reminding you, I have to dig up my memory, and some of the written documents are really director's report to the board and dean's reports to the board, and those and all of them are available at least at OCMS. Okay, let me start with outline so that you will not just look at me. Okay, let me, all right.
There it is. Well, so just go ahead and put presenting view, yeah.
Okay, all right. Remember, this is just a decade of reflection. Outline, I will briefly say about the context, and then I have 4 headlines during which the OCMS played towards global mission within the context of global mission. The first one is strengthening and establishing holistic mission. Second is expanding the engagement circle. Third is convening and brokering gift. Now this I need to develop further. And the last is Edinburgh 2010. And I have a couple closing remarks. Okay, the context. I have two short headlines here. One is global Christianity. This graph will be sufficient to illustrate and at the turn of the 20th century and the 21st century, in this 100 years time. About the time when the Edinburgh Missionary Conference took place in 1910, about 82 or even 83% of world Christians lived in the global north, which is Europe and North America, and only 18% were found in the southern continents, Africa, Asia, Latin America, and Oceania. Hundreds of years ago, it changed drastically, and the global north accounted for 33%, exactly 1/3 of world Christians, and now global south accounts for 67% or 2/3 of world Christians. Some of you may recall that earlier days at OCMS in Internet, one of the most popular designation for the global south was 2/3 world. Yes, landmass population, global south is about 2/3, but today it is Christianity is about 2/3. Atlas of Global Christianity, which I refer to very frequently, was one of the celebration volumes of Edinburgh Centenary events. It was published in 2009 by Todd Johnson and Ken Ross. There's a short, almost prophetic words here. Southern Christians will interpret and critique Northern Christianity's recent dominance in theology and ecclesiology by producing their own reflections and by looking back to the earliest Christian centuries when they were in the majority. I think it fits OCMS rather squarely, especially the first part, producing their own reflections. Yes, by looking back to the earliest part of the church history, that is someone else, historians would do, but definitely the OCMS found itself right here. So it was really the exciting decade. The Evangelical mission development, again, is a very brief one. I was glad that Artisan was before me. R, by all means, is an official OCMS historian. There is no doubt about that. And I'm so grateful that we published his book, a dissertation, and then he continues to research on along the same line. Very quickly, Ecumenical Missiology started from Edinburgh Conference in 1910 and continued by the IMC, International Missionary Council, until World Council of Churches was formed, and later, 1951, IMC joined WCC and became the Commission on World Mission and Evangelism. So you can imagine that from Edinburgh Conference, the main agenda was church unity. But in my view, it was church unity for the sake of mission. You may see that image there. That's one of the Edinburgh Centenary title, Called to Unity for the Sake of Mission. I think this is a profound statement because somehow along the way, not to blame anyone, but this Edinburgh IMC and CWME missiology, or we can call it ecumenical missiology, has been biased for the justice issues and the unity agenda. And somehow, some way, mission and evangelization, which was an important agenda for Edinburgh 1910, was dropped. I mean, documents all have that, but in practice, somehow they are, at least evangelicals began to feel, hey, somehow that the main agenda of proclaiming, evangelizing, and reaching out, they're all gone along the way. So that was the general feeling. So evangelical mission movement was formally organized, and the height was the Lausanne Congress in 1974. Of course, we all know that John Stott, the architect of the Lausanne Covenant, brought proclamation and social responsibility as two pillars of Christian mission. So you can see that it now recovers proclamation without denying our responsibility to our neighbors and to society. Now, in that meeting, again, I'm sure that the founders like Vinnie Samuel and Chris Sugden, founders of OCMS, as well as the Informat, would be able to elaborate that very well. But at that meeting, Artisan calls the radical evangelicals. They came together. Some names were really forefathers and mothers of Informat and OCMS. They produced a short document called Theology and Implications of Radical Discipleship. I realized that radical discipleship is John Stott's favorite word. Now, already within the Congress, I think it would be well that we hear from those who attended the Congress, someone like Samuel Escobar. Just have an interview with him or them, what it was like. Because there must have been a lot of debates about social responsibility. And some said, hey, are we becoming ecumenical or leftist or communist or liberal? So there is one great pool there. And the other, especially from the Global South, said that that's not good enough. Social responsibility, we need to ask deep questions like what it is like to be a Christian in a corrupt and poverty-stricken circumstance. What would it mean to be a Christian and faithful to Christ's missional call? So this document, in my view, became the water springhead, formal springhead of what is later called the holistic mission movement. Now, I'm moving to this 4 headlines that is that are very relevant to OCMS and implement. One is establishing, not really establishing. By the time I started, it was well established, but I think it's continued is strengthening the holistic mission as a mission agenda. Again, artisan is really helpful in chronicling the holistic missions fight for survival among evangelicals. It was just amazing how the tug of war was waged from the Lausanne conference and then subsequent meetings, including one that took place in Thailand and that culminated to the Manila conference. I would say that from 1983, the establishment of OCMS to the time that I started in 2006. So it is about 25 years, a quarter century of OCMS. It was a silent in a way, but very forceful, dominant presence in carrying out the holistic mission agenda. But that period was really trying to carve out its space within evangelical mission. I don't think it had ability, time, and luxury to look beyond evangelical world. And also, as I briefly said, the OCMS from the very beginning privileged the global South. I think it is a prophetic foresight because the founders knew the global Christianity is tilting consistently but also heavily toward South, and the new energy, creativity should come from there, and also the real mission struggle and engagement is taking place every day. You do not have to move from A to B in order for you to do mission, but you live in mission in the South. So that was one thick foundation of OCMS. The other one was, of course, the practitioner privileged ethos. We just love it. And we all knew that new theological minds and scholars will be most likely practitioner scholars. And OCMS structured right there to train and sharpen and strengthen practitioners. And over the years, we realized that the student body, the scholars at OCMS, was about 40, 60 from the global North, about 40%. Many of them are practitioners in the South, although we have wonderful people pastoring and engaging in the North. And then the other 60% was global South, at least during my decade. So I believe that that short period, decade, the OCMS was riding a high wind. Remember, Ruach, or the Holy Spirit, is originally wind. So I already said the radical shift of global Christianity was what God was staging, and the role of the founders, that Bursell called them mavericks, and their institutions. We know that earlier days, the original infamous International Fellowship of mission theologians in the two-thirds world. I think that was the name. The stakeholders all had their institutions. In fact, Infomet was organized to link those institutions. One is in Croatia by Peter Kuzmic. Then we had David Kitari, not necessarily an institution. Then we had Kwame Bidiako in Ghana. Then we had Rene Padilla, and then OCMS. There was one in the Philippines. So we had a number of these going on, and that their names are really stellar mavericks. Almost everybody would recognize. Rene Padilla recently passed away. We are so grateful that during our time, we are able to help to transition the leadership from the old Infomet to the new, younger ones, which we named as International Fellowship for Mission as Transformation. Ruth Padilla and Artisan and a group of the folks are doing a wonderful work. And then, of course, knowledge created by Infomet and OCMS. There is no doubt that this was, I think, when you create knowledge, it's a winning game. Then another clever and creative construction of the earlier founders was the outlet. Not only create knowledge, but also create our own outlet. Yes, our scholars could have published their dissertations in many other publishers, and some did, and very reputable ones. But the early founders decided that we would produce an in-house publishing outlets, Transformation, the journal, and the Regner books. And those two outlets have established OCMS as a formidable player for holistic mission. And of course, during this time from Lausanne, now let's say that 2010, when Cape Town Congress took place in 2010, evangelical attitude towards holistic mission had drastically changed, gradually, and this drastically changed. Some of you were at Cape Town, and the plenaries we heard, nobody would even point their fingers. My gosh, that is the liberal mission practice. No, it was all there, and it was almost like a matter of fact manner. And also, we are so proud that our own scholar, Doug Bursell, was the conference marshal. He was the international director. And of course, his dissertation has added to this argument. So we are grateful that there was a period that holistic mission was firmly established. So this is, it is a Cape Town Congress. Holistic mission was now a given. That means nobody argues. In fact, if you don't bring holistic mission, if it's a proclamation only, then people begin to shake their heads. And so it was very interesting. And of course, there were several sessions that the founders of holistic mission were coming together, reflecting on. It was really a celebration. I enjoyed it, to be part of it. The person was just there, smiling and beaming with his delight. So this was a crowning moment. Before I move to the next one, and I conclude that OCMS also during this time expanded its mission agenda. It started really with a very intentional focus on poverty. So earlier dissertations, earlier writings were very much on poverty, and then anything that is related to poverty. So women issue were there, health like HIV/AIDS were there, education became part of it. So everything was formed around this poverty agenda. But I think because of the changing scenery and also new opportunities, OCMS begin to see the church unity and mission cooperation became a new agenda. And also we realized we began to pick up nation building thanks to Bishop Hua Yong of Malaysia, who served as the chair of the Council of Trustees, and also with our partner, I think it's a Compassion UK, one of them. We began to receive the leaders from South Sudan, just independent nation, and we begin to add a nation building as our agenda. The second one is that during that period, OCMS emerged as the largest European PhD mission program in mission studies. I very carefully, Tom and I submitted our dissertation list to this journal, International Bulletin of Mission Research, published by OMSC. Oftentimes people are confused between OCMS, Overseas Ministry Study Center. Yes, OMSC. Now it is with Princeton. They publish every year the PhD dissertations and mission studies. We diligently submitted our list, and I almost religiously counted it. And it was interesting that earlier days, you can imagine that Sally Oaks was the biggest PhD program producing quality mission studies research. Then Sally Oaks colleges closed and became part of Birmingham. And then I noticed that Utrecht University in the Netherlands emerged with Jongenel. It had its heydays, and we saw the surge of dissertations. And then, I don't know what happened, then all of a sudden we begin to see less and less dissertations from there. And then at some point, I think from about 2010, we begin to see that OCMS becomes the largest mission PhD producer in Europe. In North America, there were two larger ones. One is Fuller, the other one is either Trinity or Columbia. One of them we raise neck to neck, but I mean, that's fine. But I mean, knowing how mission agenda is so large, we want to work with everybody, but we prided on this development. Okay, the second one was expanding engagement circle. I have a little reflection on this. This may be most relevant to IMC interest. Engagement or re-engagement with ecumenical mission movement. Perhaps somebody needs to research on this. Perhaps Marina can do this. I was told that our founders, especially Vinnie Samuel and Chris Sugden, they were very active within the CWME meetings, circles, and document drafting. In fact, they are the drafters of many documents. I probed a little bit, but I didn't get much. Perhaps I can reach out CWME or somebody can do that, and their documents will always have the list of participants and stakeholders. So I think it can be done. Then if that was right, then there was a radical disengagement with the ecumenical mission movement and establishing the holistic mission within the evangelical mission. It is a little bit of my own story. As introduced, I'm a Pentecostal from Korea. So ecumenical mission is not in my planet. It was in another planet. In fact, Pentecostals had been living in a myopic world. Even if I was a mission practitioner and a mission teacher, a theologian in the Philippines for almost 3 decades, I care even less about the Lausanne meeting in Manila or visit of John Stott to head a preaching seminar in Manila. Some of my colleagues were just so eager to travel 7 hours bus trip to attend these wonderful meetings. Now I deeply regret. Then in 2005, CWME had its mission conference. That must have been 13th, I'm not sure. It starts from Edinburgh, of course, and then they had this. I want to appeal to all of you. Please pay deep attention to the Regnum Edinburgh Study Series because it is a gold mine. For example, this Ecumenical Missiology volume, you will simply have all the ecumenical mission official documents there and reflections from different people, different sectors. Evangelicals reflect on, Pentecostals does. So this is, don't just leave them in the bookstore, no bookcase, somewhere in the corner of OCMS. Just pull that, flip over, look at the table of contents, and I believe it is still available, full text for free download. So ask your community to pay attention to certain chapters, articles, or documents. This is just one of 35 examples. So I just plead to you to pay attention to that. So Athens 2005, CWME had its mission conference in Greece. For the first time, they decided to invite evangelicals and Pentecostal participants in this Orthodox land for the first time. So you may think, yes, ecumenical mission or ecumenical movement had a period of reflection after the Lausanne Congress. Okay, oh, hey, what is happening here? Okay, did we miss something? Or sometimes, hey, is that legitimate? Are they rebels? I think there are a lot of reactions. I also realized that CWME circle is much broader than WCC circle, like Faith and Order Commission. Catholics are not an official part of it, for example. And evangelicals and Pentecostals are not there. but CWME, Commission on World Mission and Evangelism, Catholics are members. And now evangelicals and Pentecostals are invited, and from that point on, continued played a role. So I took about 5 Asian Pentecostal delegates to this beautiful land across beautiful ocean there. And I was asked to present a plenary thought. So I asked, okay, this is a Pentecostal opportunity. So I presented a Pentecostal mission thinking and ethos. So that was good. And later, another Korean, Kim, presented a plenary speech. Later, I realized it was a Kirsten Kim. She's not a Korean, but married to a Korean. She's an English woman. Later, we became wonderful friends. And she, again, played an important part at OCMS as a supervisor, but also later as a series editor for Mission Edinburgh series. Then from that point on, Julie and I became part of this long process of the creation and adoption of a new mission statement of WCC. The earlier one is 1982, is a mission affirmation. Again, I found the full text in this Ecumenical Mission volume. It was refreshing to read it. So I read and compared. It was really good. So together towards a life is a very pneumatological. I cannot take credit, but I think the most frequently appearing word is spirit. Whether it's a big S or small s, spirit appears the most frequently. And also it's a very quite evangelical, that it was intentionally taking a middle ground, speaking not only to its own WCC constituencies, but also evangelicals, Pentecostals, independent church communities. Of course, it was adopted in 2013 in the WCC 7th Assembly, and it was delighted to see Paul Bender Samuel in Arusha conference of CWME. So I'm so glad. It is really a re-engagement, if my assumption is right, that early OCMS founders were active in there. But also we witnessed the new ecumenical spaces created. I have here one example called the Global Christian Forum. It's really a new inclusive, I think this speaks to WCC, inclusive and neutral space for different churches. WCC, in spite of its very wonderful idea to embrace all diverse churches, currently today, its membership may represent around a quarter of the world's churches. So there was I deeply appreciate there was a self-reflection, what went wrong. So they facilitate to the creation of a new, inclusive, and neutral space. So Global Christian Forum was born. Again, I was involved from earlier days when they were forming the regional gatherings. Then when they had the first international gathering in 2007 in Limuru outside of Nairobi, Kenya. I believe that three faculty members attended and some of the students were there. In fact, in the picture, the man there on the stage dancing with hands up, he was our scholar. Tom, you may remember his name.
Yes, it's Oliver Samiu.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, he was, I believe that he was like a National Council's head, General Secretary. So it was just wonderful. And Manado was another gathering. Again, at least one of our faculty members attended. And then I led a theology task force. One meeting took place in Ghana in one of our sister schools, Afro Christella Center, and the concluding meeting took place at OCMS. Again, it was wonderful to have these delegates from all different churches on the building. It was a small group, but it was good. And also, again, OCMS had some unique gifts. So we offered a regnum and transformation for Global Christian Forum to publish their documents. This is another interesting experience. OCMS increasingly was viewed. I think it had come a long way. OCMS was increasingly viewed as an ecumenical and neutral space and large space. This is Dietrich Werner. He was the head of Ecumenical Theological Education desk of WCC. Wonderful man. Every time he publishes, it is always 900 pages or so. So he was approaching us to check if they could publish the theological education handbooks through Regnum. And I asked, hey, you have a nice WCC publications in Geneva. Why don't you do that? He said, no, that is too narrow. People, the moment they see WCC publications, about 3/4 of people will just walk away. Oh, and Regnum can do this? Yes, you are very neutral. You can reach Evangelicals, Pentecostals, independent. Now you can reach out Catholics and also the historic Protestants. So I realized that you have this gift. So I was delighted. So I demanded, all right, if these books are going to be only ecumenical contribution, I'm not interested. You need to add evangelicals and Pentecostal contributions or more independent churches. Only then we can do this together. He gladly did. Of course, the result is that his big book became bigger. So you have those, I think, 4 theological education handbook. Now, under Paul's direction, it has become rightly a new series. I think it's wonderful. I always wanted to have a global Pentecostal theological education handbook. It may come. So again, it was a recognition from outside. It was God's affirmation. Then the third is somehow OCMS we discovered that we had a convening and brokering gift. I don't know, brokering is the best word I could use, but we could facilitate, we could initiate something new. I have three, but I only elaborate the first one, Global Forum of Theological Educators. It was again OCMS. We had an old donor partner called, I think, Overseas Council. It's a North American evangelical foundation that supports theological education. So I wanted to recover that relationship. Fundraising was always number one goal of mine. And somebody came by the name of Manfred Kohl. It's a German descent, Canadian, very interesting character. He came into the building and he marveled at publications. And almost I wish I could say, my gosh, why we have missed our presence here. But I didn't get any money. Anyway, I showed, I think, the handbook and said that, hey, why don't you talk to this ecumenical theological education desk? I think you are all evangelical. You only support evangelicals. But at least with this growing Christianity in the global South, I think you should talk. So he flew to Geneva, and he came back surprised that yes, it was such a wonderful talk. So in a sense, we continue our talk, and then we added Catholic Steve Evans, and then even Protestant David Esterline. Then we add Orthodox, Pentecostal. I was there. We add one independent. So we continued our talk until 2016, I think 15, when we met in Oxford, nailing down that we should formalize and meet this. Some of you may recall that there was another similar network initiated by Lausanne. It's called the International Forum of Theological Education or something. Every time I enjoyed fellowship, but I did not like really because it is only evangelicals. Because, I mean, the fault of us evangelicals is when we are among ourselves, we thought the whole Christianity is evangelical. And we can solve all the problems when we are together. No, especially I realized that when it comes to theological education, there are such common challenges, agenda, and shared interest. So we are so glad that when we met for the first time, 2016, many of our scholars were there, and Paul was there. I was able to introduce him to his friends. You can see that Malchus was sitting there. It was a small gathering, about 100 of them, but you can see almost who's who in there. And then we had a 2019 meeting in Greece, 2021. This year we are to meet in Seoul, but of course, pandemic hit us, so there will be a virtual meeting. So this was one organization that OCMS was able to broker or acted as a midwife. I certainly like to mention the wonderful China conference that Tom organized. I think there must be at least a collection of all the documents, reflections, and some of the thoughts and its impacts. Realizing, at least in my knowledge, that was a very rare window that this kind of meeting could have happened. Today, it wouldn't be able to, I believe, with the current regime. So, Tom, you have one research task here. The third, I'm delightfully part of the editorial board. Again, is Tom's work. Lausanne Global Analysis was born in Oxford. It was modeled after Oxford Analytica. And I realized that for this massive Lausanne network, this is the only periodically published, at least professional publication. I'm so proud. And it publishes, 6 times per year. And I pray that the OCMS alumni and current scholars, as well as faculty, would actively contribute to this, because everybody has unique contextual engagement to contribute. Okay. The last one is Edinburgh Centenary. I realized that I planned 40 minutes, but it's almost 60 minutes. Let me just quickly go over this. I have a draft text available. There are 3 involvement of OCMS. One is the study commissions. OCMS and CMS, Church Mission Society in Oxford, we took up one mission study theme, mission spirituality and authentic discipleship, which was published. Then also, Brian Ulno is there. I'm so grateful to him. Not only that he was resurrected, but also since then, he has been prolific in producing literature. And this holistic mission volume was Brian Ulno's work. Again, this is another token that holistic mission has become a key mission expression in Christian mission. And of course, when we met together in Edinburgh 2010, every delegate received the 2 conference volumes. You can immediately recognize them because of the cover. It is such a joy to see them. The stacks of books were there, and everybody was picking one copy. It was a delight. So my deep appreciation to Tony Gray. I know he may not be here, but he deserves all of our appreciation. Then Edinburgh Conference. You can recognize this man, the chairman of the General Council of Edinburgh 2010, Reverend Andrew Anderson. Later, he became our chaplain. How wonderful it is. Again, my short involvement there. In 2005, before we knew that we were coming to OCMS, Julie and I attended a 20 people conference called the Towards 2010. Ken Ross organized this. And that's a wonderful process, because 9 study themes against 8 originally 100 years ago was adopted. In fact, the new theme was mission spirituality that OCMS took up. And Julie became the general council member and also served the executive council under Andrew Anderson. So it was a wonderful experience. I was Julie's chauffeur. Sometimes I just carried her bags, but I sat through the meetings because we knew that we'll be taking up the study theme as well as the publications. Conference, many OCMS delegates. This picture I treasure. At the closing ceremony, Julie read one of the 9 lines of the common call. Again, Every volume of the Edinburgh Centenary series has this one-page description. I want you to know that this is a succinct but truly ecumenical, inclusive mission statement. Okay, then of course we had the Regnum Edinburgh Centenary series, 35 titles, and later under Paul's leadership, 2 companion volumes appeared. And this was called, I think, Steve Bevan's, the most extensive collection of mission studies in our decades. And we, 4-member series editors decided to raise all the money. We thought there would be maximum of 8 titles. By the time we saw it grow, and we said, my gosh, what did we get into? But it's a Knud Jorgensen from Norway with his network through Areopagos. He raised the money, he solicited global contributors and writers. So it was last year, IBMR, International Mission Research Bulletin, awarded the series Missiology Books of the Decade. They didn't have this category. They had the Missiology Books of the Year. But I told them, hey, how do you think about this? Hey, which missiology books have come in this massive series and are now making available free and representing ecumenical and global scope of Christianity? Hey, how do you think that you institute a new award? And they gladly said, I'm glad that you suggest that. So I don't know whether it was an award that I created, but we are delighted to have this. Now I have to quickly close. There is one project after the Edinburgh. I thought it would be a good project involving WCC, which is on human flourishing, OCMS, holistic mission, Pentecostal, blessing or prosperity or healing. If we can have an extensive study process, I thought it would be wonderful. But it didn't come through. Maybe it's a Paul's agenda. Now, I can look back and say that there is no doubt that there is a God's wise timing. Edinburgh 2010, year 2010 has become the watershed moment, at least of my tenure there. And I could see that how OCMS had become ready to engage or re-engage much wider. So, and my own prior links have served it. And there was a bit of risk-taking because when Edinburgh asked, hey, can you take this publication? I said, we have never done this before, but let's try it. Okay, so we did it. Now, by closing, I reflected on this. If my presentation sounds a bit like a self-gratifying, not at all. I want you to know, not at all. In fact, that is why I'm eager to write the other in-house version, because that will be more based on my own struggle of learning and God's amazing grace and generosity of God's people and churches. That story has to be told. I'm not necessarily inviting myself back, but I feel that is something I should do. This kind of mission engagement, especially church unity, church cooperation, did I take it in a more formal way, like opening up to my own OCMS community to brainstorm, process, reflect on, so that not only I gain the collective wisdom, but also the community will share this, what is going on outside world. I feel I have failed it. Things are moving very fast. And when I was leading OCMS and with this huge Edinburgh series going, it was practically feeling like I was feeling like it's a hand to mouth, just survival. And also it has to do with my leadership style. Perhaps in many ways, I lack intentional process. So I was so glad when my successor, Paul Bender Samuel, with a rich experience and the leadership of organizations, spending 7 months together, just a building relationship, but also sharing what OCMS was and had been. It was wonderful. So I feel that it was like I was in a 10-year interim leader, making sure that OCMS continues its presence and just discern the wind blowing and ride on it, and until God sends real man. So I felt that I was like a John the Baptist. So I could hand that over to the leader. So that is my reflection. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Wonsuk, and really an excellent putting together of the narrative under your leadership at OCMS, and also all the things that came together in that. In terms of, we're going to have a Q&A period, and in order to ask or make a comment on Wonsuk's talk, at the bottom there's a little button that says reactions, and on that reaction, if you push it, it will then say raise hand. So if you click that, then I can see that when you want to ask a question. But let me begin the session, Wonsuk, because I served under you and watched this whole thing unfold, and I thought your narrative was really good. And one of the things I saw in terms of your work, and it showed up here too, is this convergence that took place largely, and you were a key figure in this that began to bring these two worlds together. And particularly that happens in 2010. Because in 2010, you have the study process coming together that's going up to Edinburgh 2010. But at the same time, the Lausanne 2010 conference, which is a major conference down in South Africa, is going on. And one of the things that I know that you had a hand in, but I don't know the whole story, is that through that process of these two worlds together, you were good friends with Dietrich Werner. And Dietrich's work in this was so important, and his willingness to bring OCMS in and work with us, but also that he got to know Doug Birdsall, who was heading up 2010. And as you know, there was a little bit of a disruption at Edinburgh 2010. And Dietrich really brought the worlds together by inviting, because there was some comment about, we've got someone from this crazy group that's with Lausanne here, and it was National Council of Churches US that was disturbed by this, but Dietrich didn't push back. What he did was he invited Doug up to the front of the Edinburgh 2010 and introduced him and what was going on in mission. And vice versa, then Doug, when he was at Lausanne, brought Dietrich up. Those were very symbolic but very important gestures. Wonsuk, could you talk a little bit about that relationship and how that came together? Because it seemed really key to me, and I know you had a part in it.
Thank you, Tom. I'm not very sure, if I intentionally linked Doug with Dietrich, but I know I linked Doug with Joseph Kuhn, who is the secretary of the CWME. I felt that he's a wonderful partner because Kuhn was organizing mission conference of WCC. So I know I made that link, but with Dietrich, perhaps you may know more than I do, but I remember at the Cape Town Congress, I was delighted to see the Catholic, Orthodox, and the mainline Protestant delegates at the front center. They were introduced, and yes, there were some people. There is a commotion. Hey, why are they there? So it was. But we evangelicals need to learn how to exercise generosity, reciprocity.
Yeah.
WCC always try to include as much as broadly as possible. We evangelicals need to learn, and the Europeans can help us, because I realized that in North America, evangelical and ecumenical, they are divided by denominational lines. But for example, in the UK, the largest evangelicals are found in the Anglican Church. So our Uncle John Stott could be not only part of Lausanne, but also you could be the leader. Sorry that, Tom, I couldn't share much on that.
Michael, go ahead. Unmute, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to come in with, I was part of that story, how the study process and then 2010 developed, and the most vivid memory I have, I like the word, Tom, that you use, convergence, because I think the really interesting story behind it was that the different, I would call them traditions, WCC, Evangelicals, Lausanne, and so on, had to find out who owns the heritage of Edinburgh 1910, and who can claim to be, so to speak, the legitimate inheritor of that tradition. And they all decided we cannot own it for ourselves. We need to have a platform. And that brought a moment of convergence about where the people were looking back and asking, okay, where do we come from? Why, in which way are we relating to that event? Which dimensions of Edinburgh 1910 are we still upholding? And I think that in that moment, certain persons who were able to talk to each other became important, because they were the bridge builder for that movement. And I think the second very exciting question in that point was, how do you celebrate such an event? And I remember so many discussions about what would be the adequate place to go to and to celebrate 100 years of Edinburgh 1910. And in the beginning, everybody said, Edinburgh, no way. It would look as we are, triumphing. Finally, we did it. We have reached the whole world. So they were talking about South Africa, they were talking about Asia. And in the end, with everything coming down to a small scale thing in relation to what had been invented in the beginning, Edinburgh was the best place to say, okay, let's have a memorial of that event, but bring a totally different group and people together. And I think in that point, as I said, persons were important, but I think it was also the time. It was the circumstance, the situation of the time, and how do we relate to it. And let me add one word, because I'm part of that steering group of the International Missionary Council Foundation, that Wonsuk, you may be pleased to hear that we are planning to have a second large collection of books, not 35. We go for 8 regions, but still, it's inspired by that work of this incredible thing. And let's see what we are going to harvest from the different study centers as contributions toward a global discussion about cooperation and mission. And I think that's what I wanted to highlight. And it's nice to see you, Wonsuk, because I think it was in these days that we met and have cooperated also in preparing that study process. So I was part of that, and thank you. That is what I wanted to share.
Thank you, Mikhail.
Thank
Damon.
you. May I say a word?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Wonsuk.
Yeah, Mikhail, thank you very much. In fact, the EMW remained as a key partner, not only in helping OCMS scholars through scholarship, but also the publication programs. Even before, yes, EMW supported, sponsored many volumes, and each volume you will see that who has really financed and supported each volume, and you will see perhaps EMW appearing most often. But also, I think Mikhail's deep interest in raising women's scholarship from the South has been an unwavering commitment. And through his support, we intentionally encouraged women graduates of OCMS to publish through Regnum. So I'm grateful, because I'm excited about your new study process. Keep me posted.
Damon, go ahead.
Yes, it's good to see you once again. You look as young as ever. Yeah,
Thank you.
I can see that the OCMS play a very important role of bringing the two worlds together, the world of ecumenical Christian and the world of evangelical Christians. And I think it's a good thing that we're able to talk to one another. So OCMS play a very useful role there. I just wonder whether in the process of bringing the two worlds together, whether there was any challenges, both theologically or practically, and if there were some challenges, how did you manage to negotiate through those challenges and bring the two worlds together? This is one of those academic probing questions.
Yeah, thank you, Damon. It's good to see you. I trust that your daughter is doing well, as well as your son. I need to make a disclaimer here. I did not necessarily actively brought these two worlds together. It was a spaces God created for us to enter and play a key role. I think that is a more accurate description. I think Mikhail was again right that the timing was key. It was not only that the realization of ecumenical mission circles, evangelicals, and remember, Orthodox and Catholics, all of them realized that, okay, hey, Edinburgh 1910 was in a sense a limited presence. It only in North America and Europe, majority, and the Protestant churches. Catholics were not there, Orthodox not there, Pentecostal not there. How can we? I think it has much to do also with the change in global Christianity. Therefore, by the time that towards 2010 conference was held, all this self-reflection and awareness were there. So one I attended, and 20 of us, some of us simply didn't have a much historical root. So we said, hey, why so-and-so was not there? Why which church was not there? How about this agenda? So there was some ignorant but fresh opinions. So I was so glad that by the time in my draft, I may have the list of all the key churches and mission organizations represented in the General Council. And you will see that there were about 10 major church representatives from Catholic Orthodox all the way to independent churches, Baptist Union, Methodist Union, and then major mission organizations, including CWME, Lausanne, WEA, then we have a student movement, IFES, and all of them were there. So I think 2010 Edinburgh was far more intentionally inclusive, ecumenically and geographically. So in a sense, OCMS representing the global South and a variety of church traditions, we're able to raise voices and make a contribution in setting agenda. I think that space I found is the best, one of the best spaces where OCMS could function and contribute to, because we could relate to almost everyone, because holistic mission is one way or another everybody embraces. In fact, I had some in-depth talk with the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We were trying to get one member to become their seconded faculty member, which did not materialize. But Catholics, everybody would participate, because holistic mission, yes, started with the poverty, but it has to do with the human wellness as intended by God in his creation and work of the Holy Spirit, agency of his people. I think everybody would agree, whether we are talking about creation care, poverty, corruption, or gender equality. I think OCMS is a genius, creative community that could fit in the broad spaces like this. So yeah, short answer to you, Damon, was no, I didn't really create it, those merging situations.
Marina, go ahead. You're on mute, Marina. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Wonsuk, for your presentation. It was really easy to follow, and also sort of, since it's from your own life experience, it was easy to imagine, you know, what it would have been like, you know, the discussion and the conversations and the meetings. So that was quite, what I would say, enjoyable. And I have a question about what role did the understanding of sin play in the debates between evangelicals and the ecumenicals? Would it be just to say that evangelicals tended to perceive unjust social realities as the result of the actions of individual sinners, and that this had in a way led to the ecumenicals being viewed as disregarding, diluting, or offering an excuse to sinners, individual sinners, by talking of unjust structures instead of individual sins? So I understand this debate to be one of the issues in the background of the so-called evangelical ecumenical divide. And my question is, how would you look at this debate and this issue within the holistic mission approach?
Wow,
Very good.
where did it come from?
Very
Wow,
good.
that is huge. It is almost like coming from the Faith and Order Commission. Okay, because I was a part of one recent conversation in a faith order. I don't know, I haven't thought through this. I think this is a question that can be fielded to the whole community, because in every engagement, yes, sin becomes such a handy and convenient and easy scapegoat to solve the problem. I mean, to at least explain the problem. I don't think that That is good enough. We all know that. Yes, evangelicals tend to quickly to move on by doing this. I don't know, Marina. I simply do not have. This is a profound theological question. Given OCMS, many researches will be based on the field realities, and oftentimes not necessarily digging deep the theological roots and theological debates. It was more, I mean, they're all valid and relevant, but definitely there is a place for theological discussion, reflection, and research. Looks like, Marina, you need to prepare one Monty Barker presentation on sin, because it is a mission agenda, deep mission agenda, whether it's a proclamation camp or social responsibility camp. You cannot ignore that discussion. I have learned how to avoid difficult questions.
Well,
Thank you.
it's about time to bring it to an end, but let me end with a comment and also a little bit of an advertisement. This is just a personal observation of one who had walked alongside of you, Wonsuk, during this period. And I thought your opening slides really caught the fundamental changes that were going on in the world. The church was changing in its dynamics.
Yeah.
You know, it was now becoming a global church, and how the global church addressed these questions was very different than the Western church. And you're right, especially the church in North America was deeply divided along doctrinal and ecclesial lines, and that then carried over into both the WCC, but also within Lausanne. But it was the global delegates that began to think about this in new ways. You know, you did mention the kind of ruffles that were going through at Cape Town, or I saw that at Edinburgh, but it was largely the international, the global South delegates that were the peacemakers in those things, and also, though, insistent that leadership not come from the West, that the leadership of the church come from the 2/3 world, from Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And so this is where my advertisement comes in. Next week, we have Bishop Hua Yong, and I really recommend that you attend this. Hua Yong, he wanted to back out because he says, Tom, if I talk, it's going to be too controversial. And I said, we need a little controversy. But he's going to talk about this very subject and the ongoing frustrations in that regard that Hua Yong has faced in his world. Hua Yong is the Bishop of Malaysia, a brilliant mind and one of the key persons within OCMS over the years. But what's so important in that regard is that this is an ongoing issue. And I think as we look at our world and how polarization is growing politically and ecclesially again, but largely dominated by issues, political issues in North America, but also between nations, that this is a time once again for the global church to lead and have an impact on these major issues. So Wonsuk, I think you've contributed greatly to that conversation. Yeah. Next week with Hua Yong, it will continue. And thank you, Marina, for all you've done in helping to put this series together and the ongoing study process in this, because I think in one sense, looking at IMC is in hindsight, but if it's going to be of value, it needs to have foresight as well. As to how things are going to be unfolding in the years to come and how we can continue this conversation that has begun here to develop things along the lines that Wonsuk did in his tenure here. And again, so it's said with deep thanksgiving and appreciation for all those gathered around. And do keep your eye open too, as we hope to put this into a volume through the guidance of Michael and Marina and elsewhere in terms of the World Council of Churches, looking at this study process so that what we're gaining here around the globe from the different groups can once again bless the church, even as you have blessed the church, Wonsuk, in your work in writing and editing and leading of institutions. So thank you so much. Blessings upon you. And with that, I will say goodbye to all those gathered and look forward to seeing you next week for a very exciting talk once again. So
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good to see you, Rosemary.
Lovely to see you. Lovely to hear it. Marvelous, inspirational.
Thank you. Thank
Wonsuk,
you all.
Wonsuk, I sent the picture of Dietrich to him and he sends his regards and he says, I feel honored to be mentioned.
Oh, he should be mentioned more than once. By the way, when Bishop Wyam comes, he wouldn't say this, but Bishop was responsible in recruiting me to come to OCMS.
Yes.
And then later, he again did the same thing for Tom to come as a gift. It's important, gift of his church, the Presbyterian Church USA, to serve at OCMS for many years until now. And again, it was Bishop Hua Yong who brought Paul Bender Samuel to our attention. And so you will know that he is kind of kingmaker.
So maybe I should have Marina moderate next week. And I won't appear, so you can take it out on Hua Yong for all the mistakes he made in bringing me in as dean.
All right. It was joy to see you all. I just put my email address in the chat if you have any questions. Thank you for all the warm welcomes, the messages and chat. My email address is always short, wma@oru.edu. All right, have a wonderful day. God bless you all.
And one note before I close, and you'll appreciate this one. So Paul had to pull out because he had a donor meeting.
Yes, by all means.
This is the burden that you guys carry.
Yes.
All right.
All right. God
Bye.
bless you all. It's
Bye.
so good to see you all.